We've arrived to the outset, the commencement of week 4 of college football. Welcome into the voice of college football. And I appreciate everybody being here on a Thursday night as we await many of you the NFL game tonight, a little bit of college football somewhere, and some action on Friday night as well. We will preview a little bit later tonight. We'll come on at 11:30 Eastern time tonight to talk week 4 of the college football season. But we are always open to your comments, your questions in the live chat, and always open to your phone calls here on the call-in line. So I have presented a topic that is in the news today concerning the Ohio State quarterback situation. We also have quarterback situations to a certain extent at Texas A&M, at USC, at Clemson, and across the country, Notre Dame in particular as well. So again, I serve up the topic. You produce the show ultimately. So leave your comments, your questions in the live chat. Of course, consider contributing here at the Voice of College Football. Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App are your destinations. Just search Mark Rogers TV or just go into the description section of any of the videos. Go right there and check us out on Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. And also, you may want to join us on Patreon. The link is in the description section as well. Or go to Patreon, search Mark Rogers TV, and lock in on those predictions from myself and 20 media members each and every week. Just posted a video from Steve Merrill from Wager Talk and Pro Sports Info, and his Under the Radar pick of the week, which he brings us each and every week, in addition to my predictions, where I just don't predict 3 or 4 games. I predict all the games in the top 25 plus, and that has turned out to be 70 games through 3 weeks of college football, 22 games last week, 20-2 against the money line, and 13-9 against the spread, 42-28 against the spread this season. So check out my picks on Patreon for the enormous amount of 17 cents per day. Let's get into the Ohio State quarterback situation again. Just because I make it the topic of the night does not mean that's what we have to talk about. So the phone lines are open at 860-499-3332. Let me set it up for you right here on the ticker below. Again, 860-499-3332. There it is. Who do we have in the chat tonight? We've got some old reliables. Roberto's here. He says, get them back up some reps. Rest that shoulder up for Stroud versus Maryland, or until Maryland, because Ohio State plays Akron this week. Then they've got Rutgers the next week. Keep blitzing and keeping our game honest. All right. We've got, more from Roberto. So if you want the early take on the night, go to Roberto's comments to start the show. Who else? Treasure the Torah. I truly, in my heart of hearts, think this is a blessing in disguise for the Buckeyes. It may very well be. No apostrophe S. Treasure the Torah. The Rod Farva thinks that this is the entryway for Kyle McCord to take over this season. That's what it appears there. JG. And all of a sudden, the backup quarterback, the most popular player on the team for almost everybody across the nation, even before he's thrown a pass, the Kyle McCord era has begun. Hey, Cheryl. Good to see you. Cheryl says, we know Urban fell in love with one quarterback. Hope this doesn't happen. All I'm saying. There was some criticism of Urban Meyer and JT Barrett in regards to Urban Meyer just being comfortable with the way JT Barrett ran the offense, ran the ball himself, and that he didn't want to take a chance on a less experienced quarterback, that be Joe Burrow or Dwayne Haskins. We saw Haskins in 2017 come in against Michigan and throw a bullet on the money and give us a precursor of what we were going to see as he would throw 50 touchdown passes a season later. Let's see, that was in 2017. So Dwayne Haskins was the starter the very next season when JT Barrett wrapped it up in 2017. I've got to trust that what Ryan Day sees in practice is what he applies to his decision. And that's what he has to go on. Now, regardless, at some point, if a player continues to be the best player in practice, but then doesn't meet the standard on the field on game day, then you've got to make a decision that even though you continue to see this guy be the better player in practice, that initially has to be the decision because you don't have games to evaluate the players, but you eventually have games to evaluate the players. I was hoping, for Ohio State's sake, that the Tulsa game would present the opportunity for Kyle McCord in particular and Jack Miller possibly to get reps against a decent team, a much better team than one we're going to see this week against Akron. So from a perception and public relations standpoint, maybe the worst thing that could happen this week would be that Ohio State wins this game 60-0, and Kyle McCord and or Jack Miller, especially if one of them, let's say, doesn't play well. Let's say Jack Miller doesn't play well. He gets 8 or 10 passes in. He gets to play a few series, throws 8 or 10 passes, and he doesn't play well. So there's not a decision to be made between the two of them or a comparison to be made between the two new quarterbacks. But let's say Kyle McCord tears it up. Maybe the worst thing that could happen from a PR standpoint is that Kyle McCord tears it up against Akron, throws for 350 and 5 touchdowns, and suddenly we've got a quarterback controversy on our hands, even though Ryan Day may still be convicted that CJ Stroud is the best quarterback. Kyle McCord will be playing, and we'll focus on McCord over Miller because I think that there is a distinction there based on what we've seen in spring practice, the spring game, and what we've heard about their skill sets and what they've accomplished on the practice field thus far. We do need to understand that Akron's awful. Some people clump maybe the non-conference light games altogether, but there is a decided difference between Akron as the 125th worst team in the country or 125th best team in the country, like the worst or the 5th worst, something in that range, and Tulsa, who is in the top 75 to 80 and therefore in the bottom 40. Big difference. We've got Dependent Fanatic here. We've got Sam Kim here. We will start taking calls very quickly. Let's hear directly from Ryan Day and what he said about the quarterback situation. I don't think that it's too telling. We can read into whether CJ Stroud, he's obviously hurt, or he would just continue to play. Now, whether he would have played this week against a better opponent, it seems like he would have, but Ryan Day sees the opportunity to achieve 2 goals: to see other quarterbacks play under fire and to see and to get the rest and the recovery time for CJ Stroud. Now, whether he truly believes that that's all that there is to it, that's what he's communicating to us. But Ryan Day may, in fact, be taking this as an opportunity to see other quarterbacks. Not necessarily with the number one priority being to rest CJ Stroud, but using that as a bit of an excuse or opportunity to see the other quarterbacks. So CJ Stroud is going to be used only in an emergency capacity, according to Ryan Day. He said this on his weekly radio show Wednesday night. Nursing a shoulder injury. Would love to know what that means. and the staff felt a week of rest would do the redshirt freshman some good. Day says we'll see how he's feeling right now, see how he's feeling today coming in, but there's still this kind of feeling that he had. I love reading quotes because these quotes are all over the place. There was still kind of this feeling that he had that he really couldn't shake. Quinn Ewers is not going to play, so his availability has been completely taken off the table. Jack Miller and Kyle McCord will get the playing time. It appears as though both of them will see playing time. We can reasonably expect McCord to get the start and the majority of the playing time because he has been taking reps with the second team in practice. And that's about all that matters right there. Ryan Day did make a comparison between 2021 and 2014. Ohio State fans love hearing that. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Steve here. Am I on?
Hey, Steve. How you doing?
Lifelong Michigan fan, so it's been first fun 3 weeks of college football for me in a very long time, watching Ohio implode. Quick question for you: just watching Harbaugh's offense and seeing like the past 10 years of national champion offenses, and I'm not trying to imply that I think Michigan is a national champion team. I'm just wondering if you think in Harbaugh's like dream offensive state, if it was perfectly going, that could potentially be a national champion caliber offense.
I think that it's reasonable to think that Michigan can contend and win the Big Ten championship. I don't know that they can win a national championship. I don't know that they have the talent all the way across the board to win the national championship.
Yeah, that's not really my question.
Okay.
My question is more of, do you think if Harbaugh's dream scenario, like that offensive like style play could win a national championship, not whether this team can? I'm more curious if this day college football, do you think a team that plays the style they do could win a national championship with that offense?
So they certainly did up until, I would say, the last team that played this conservatively on offense and relied on the run this much to go extremely far did not win a national championship, but they came within 10 seconds, and that's Auburn in 2013. Ohio State didn't throw the ball like crazy in 2014, but they certainly had the style, the more updated style of offense. I think I might have answered this question differently during the offseason than I will now, because first of all, if you look in the Big Ten, Ohio State being the outlier that, to use your word, imploding on defense at least, and the offense is pass happy, that that everybody else is cut from the same mold, at least the way they're approaching the game right now. Michigan's not running the ball. They are more so than anybody in the conference, but not a ton more than everybody else in the conference. Everybody that's good in the conference is taking the same approach. I do think that it's possible. I think that it's good to have an identity and to know what you do well. And as long as you're capable of passing and you can convert on third down and you can create some explosive plays, I don't think that you can dink and doink every time you throw the ball and have that be successful. I think there has to be a threat, a reasonably significant threat of killing a team deep with explosive plays, whether that be throwing the ball deep or just having playmakers where you're throwing slants and they can take it to the house.
Yeah.
And then also being efficient on third down, on 3rd and 6, on 3rd and 4, throwing the football, even though, and what makes it doubly difficult for the defense, of course, is that the down and distance I just named isn't necessarily a passing down like it is for just about everybody else in the country, that a Michigan team can reasonably go on 3rd and 6 and run the ball and gain a first down. I think it can be rather effective.
Yeah, especially on like a 1 week prep schedule. It can be really effective. But yeah, all in all, super excited for this Big Ten year. Really excited about Michigan's trajectory and proud of what Harbaugh has been able to do. Rooting for him all the way. Hopefully, Michigan gets over this final hump, and hopefully we're back unlike Texas.
Yeah, I think that based on what we've seen in the non-conference schedule, and with the Big Ten playing more conference games to date and more meaningful conference dates than anybody else in the country, that we've seen a glimpse of what's going to happen in the Big Ten with Penn State and Wisconsin, Ohio State, Minnesota, Illinois, Maryland, some decent games in the conference. That upper crust appears to be very thick with 5 or 6 teams.
Yeah. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Hopefully, hopefully the middle class could steal one, not against Michigan, but hopefully maybe against a Penn State, a Maryland could take that game, or hopefully somehow Rutgers takes Ohio when they travel to Jersey on the 2nd. So we'll see. It's definitely going to be an interesting year. Now, my only hope for the season is at the end of the year, that it's not like, okay, Ohio won out, Alabama won out, Clemson somehow pulled it. Hopefully there's like at least some difference compared to other years. And, obviously I don't think we're going to have like a 2007. I don't think that's ever going to happen again. But, at least some variation or some surprise would be so much fun and needed for the sport.
I think what you just stated, the reason that there's hope is that multiple teams are vulnerable. So Clemson's vulnerable, Ohio State, Oklahoma. We haven't been hit with that in the first 3 weeks of the season. So the probabilities are that there's going to be some level of shakeup. Now, certainly nobody would be surprised or should be surprised if any one of those teams or all of them don't pull it together and win their conference. But it's just the probability is that more so this year that we're going to see a shakeup.
100%. And, after watching Alabama the first week, I was like, okay, I was ready to put the season over. And then seeing what's been going on with Miami and, seeing Florida give Alabama a real run for this money, like, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? So, kind of hoping for the best. Last question for you. It kind of more of an aesthetic question. What do you think about the Ohio 70K fan attendance?
Oh, it's not a good look. Now, we've just come out of a pandemic or still are in a pandemic. I guess I should state it that way. So it is understandable. I don't know if that's, I think it's a combination of a number of things. We saw that against Oregon that the prices of the tickets were extremely high, not that they haven't been in the past, that some people are still hesitant to go to games or go to large gatherings. And then number 3, that there's some apathy there that I think sets in when you expect to win every game. And then you can't even get excited for Oregon. And then once Oregon beats Ohio State, then you're thinking, okay, the season might be over and we're really not excited about this. This is the first time I've seen it. I've been around for a long time, and they sell out games there and have forever.
Yeah, I think like thinking back to the Rich Rod days, pretty sure Michigan mostly sold a lot of those games. But I went to Ann Arbor. I remember my freshman year. It was tough to even get to some of those games. So I guess I feel it. And also, pandemic.
But at least we're talking about a Michigan team that went 3-9 one year, that went 5-7, that went 7-6 his last year and got embarrassed in a bowl game. We're talking about a team that lost one game and is still ranked in the top 10 in the country.
Yeah, it's like I said earlier, it's unbelievable watching the implosion and it's breaking the glass and hitting the panic button. And like this Oregon team is clearly very good, very well coached, high talent recruits. Yeah, they had a lot of missing players on defense, but they're still a good team. And now you talk about the Virginia Tech instance, and then what happened after that. It's just so bizarre that these clowns can't keep it in perspective.
I hear you. I take the call, so I'm right there with you. You've got your fan base split between the people that say, we're Ohio State. We got a bunch of 5 stars. It'll be fine. We'll pull it together and make it happen. Don't worry about it. And then you got your people on the other end of the spectrum that are looking for the nearest bridge. And I think that the reality is probably somewhere in between. These are real issues and concerns with this football team. They may be in a dogfight and probably will be, based on what we've seen, in a dogfight. But will they be in contention? Are they still really good and have talent? Yeah. But it's just not going to be as easy as it's been.
Mm-hmm. After when do you guys like next big test? Who do you have after Rutgers?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Who's the game after Rutgers after the second? I know Akron and Rutgers.
I believe it's Maryland. I believe it's Maryland, and I think you were on the money in citing Maryland as a team that on a given day could make it difficult on one of the better teams in the conference.
Yeah, I still don't forgive them for that 2016 loss that they had. That's still burned in my head. One of the many images burned in my head from that year. But what are you going to do?
Well, I appreciate the call.
Yeah, it's been fun. Take care.
Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. We will keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football, and I'll be checking out your comments and questions there on the live chat. Here we go. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hi, David.
David, what's going on?
Hey, just a general question, and thank you for taking the call. Can you explain to me why it seems like Ohio State seems to struggle and put together the team during the season as opposed to some of the other ranked teams, which appear to be at least 3-0 and continue to display that season after season? Why is it? I guess my question is, why does it seem that Ohio seems to have to build their team during the game?
I think I understand what you mean. I do want to bring to light, before I try to answer that question, that Ohio State does have, next to Alabama, the best winning percentage in college football over the last decade. So it's not that they are achieving at an extremely high level. So any other program that you would bring up aside from Alabama, the counter to that would be, well, they're winning more games than them. So your point, that's the counterpoint to your point, is, what do you mean by struggling when they're playing and winning at a higher percentage than everybody else?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying there, and I can appreciate that. It just seems like Ohio State, it just seems like that they put themselves behind the 8 ball, and they have to either win out or, you know what I mean, with some other tough games coming up. It's never a good time to lose, obviously, but it seems like they struggle on putting together the right pieces. Like, why didn't the coach foresee some of this unfolding? Isn't that what they're supposed to do, is prepare the team for, okay, this is what we're going to look like, this is what we're going to do, and then you get out in the field and you see something that's totally different, I guess. But thank you for your call or listening.
Well, no, I appreciate it, and I certainly am going to address some of the seasons you're talking about, because I think there's some truth to what you're saying. I'm not discounting it, that they have had seasons. I don't think, I'm not seeing the pattern that you are, but I do believe that there have been seasons, 2018 in particular comes to mind, 2015, where it took them a long time to figure things out, and they did suffer a loss in there that was unexpected, that they had to recover from.
Okay. Yeah, but any insight as to why it's why can't they have this like ready to go opening day? Like, the plan is ready to go day one. Is this just normal for teams to do this? Then is my question. Then is you get in there, you have the game plan, and then it doesn't work out, and then you have to piece it together during the next couple of games.
Well, I will say, if you look at any college football coach and look at their resume, especially coordinators and assistant coaches, they're constantly moving. There is the rarity. Brent Venables is the Clemson defensive coordinator who's been there forever. There are very few that stay anywhere. So the coaching staffs are constantly in flux. And the addition, because they're getting better jobs or they're getting fired, one of the two happens. They're doing so well that they get more opportunities, or they get fired. Or the head coach gets fired, and therefore everybody gets fired. and not retained. So there is a lot of churn, both from a coaching standpoint and from a player standpoint, because of course this is not the NFL. These players only have a limited window of time of eligibility. So there's not a lot of continuity between coaches and players on a roster for anybody.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Thank you. And like I said, I'm a big fan and appreciate you and what you do there. So keep up the great work, and thank you for taking the call.
Thank you so much for the call. Have a good night.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, next up. The phone lines are packed here. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, I'm Steve from Florida. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing well, Steve. What's going on?
No, just a quick question. I've been a fan of. I'm 26, first of all. I've been a fan of Ohio State since that god-awful performance against Urban Meyer in 2006 national championship. I want to tell you that the only reason I became an Ohio State fan is my pure hate for the Florida Gators, and when I saw what they did to Ohio State, I've been a fan ever since and hated Urban Meyer until he coached for us. But I just have a couple quick questions. Seeing the performance that we rolled out there on Saturday versus Tulsa, yeah, that was Tulsa, Oklahoma. That made me laugh that we only won by 21 points. But that's neither here or there. Seeing what we rolled out there, personally, if we were to see one of the quarterbacks that we haven't seen all year run out there and throw, let's say, 6 touchdowns and 500 plus yards, are we to think that maybe there should be a quarterback battle? Does that really mean anything versus, who we're playing this week, Akron, with a 500-yard game and let's say 6 touchdown game? Would that mean that there should be another battle, or is that just something we should just chalk up as like pure luck?
Well, the fans are generally going to evaluate the statistics, and the coaches are going to evaluate the play on the field, because again, they are facing one of the worst teams in the country. So it's going to be difficult to evaluate. Yeah. Now, if the statistics look awful, then if Kyle McCord goes 9 for 22 and throws 3 interceptions, then you don't even need to look at the tape, because the wide receivers are elite, and we'll just know that he didn't perform. But if he throws for 350 yards and 5 touchdowns, then the tape needs to be reviewed. And of course, Ryan Day and his coaching staff are going to do that. And they're not going to listen to the outside noise. They're going to evaluate the play on the field and take into consideration the opponent and the amount of protection given to clearly evaluate the performance and whether, let's say, Kyle McCord is that much better or any better than CJ Stroud. And even if they're...
I understand that, but I understand that, but I've coached football for the last 7 years. I've coached football, and I can understand that there's a difference in players. Some players are actually game performers, and some players are just like the perfect guys in practice. But once they get on the field, all shit breaks loose, and now we're looking at the sky like, what happened to the guy we had in practice? Like I said, reverse though, there are some guys who doesn't necessarily show up in practice. I would call the 2019 spring game when Justin Fields was the first person out there, and we only see him throw 1 touchdown to Benjamin Victor, but then comes the first game versus Florida A&M or FIU or whatever he played, he goes the first thing is 57 yards, and from then it's like we have the best thing rolling with Justin Fields. Do you think that will make a difference? Or if we see McCord come out there and tear it up, maybe we probably think of maybe he's just not the perfect practice player, but when we get to games, like the instinct kicks in and he has that go factor. And I understand this versus Akron, but I mean, still, game reps are the best reps. I mean, practice reps are good, but game reps, that live thing that you haven't seen all year, that's probably the best thing to judge. Would I be correct in saying that?
Well, I will say yes and no. Yes, for the obvious reasons. There's a crowd. There are officials that are officiating the game. It's for real. They're keeping score. The players that are playing against you are trying to tear your head off. They're coming at you. The pass rush is real, all of that. So you've got, regardless of how poor the opponent is, you've got game conditions under game rules.
Absolutely.
The difference, though, the
what
one
happened with Tulsa.
Sure. So it is different. The one advantage in the evaluation at a place like Ohio State during practice, though, is that those backup quarterbacks are facing a better defense with more talent during practice than they are. You'll hear this from championship teams all the time when they'll make comments about the games are easy because we're facing better competition in practice than we do on game day. So the games are easy because we faced better offenses or defenses during the week. And so
but that wasn't the case versus Tulsa. Will we say that Tulsa's defense is better than our defense, or their offense is better than our offense? Because if they looked up to me, the first half we were outplayed and outcoached, and we're Ohio State versus Tulsa.
Sure.
I mean, the game was 13-6 at the end of the first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I mean, the first half. Now, some people I know are saying because there was only 3 or 4 drives, but still, we had a 3 and out in our offense. I mean, penalties had something to do with it, but the offense stalled out versus Tulsa, and we're supposed to be one of the best offenses throughout the offseason, all the hype. We were one of the best offense that it don't matter if CJ Stroud is a game manager or if he's the next Justin Fields, we should have been throwing up points. Because look at what we have. Look at the wide receivers, top running backs, offensive linemen that are so elite that they're sacrificing their main positions for new positions because to get the best 5 on the field. But then we come out versus Tulsa and we look like we're actually playing versus Alabama because we can't do anything with them.
Yeah, I get your point. They did not outplay a team that they're much more talented than for quite a long time. But we can look at examples like that all over college football every week.
Yeah. Also, let me remind you, like I said, Urban Meyer, the last quarterback competition that we had was with Cardell Jones and JT Barrett. We saw Cardell come out there the first game, and then here we go, turn around, and it turns out that throughout the half of the season, JT Barrett's the best quarterback we have, and he's out there on the field now. Now we're not going to talk about exactly what happened after that, because we all know what happened with Clemson, but still, we had JT Barrett. I mean, is it possible that maybe? Go ahead.
What happened with Cardell Jones? I don't know. I can't think of another time in college football history that anything like that ever happened before. Now, somebody might be able to figure out a time or find a time, or somebody who had never played, no plays, no experience, nothing.
I can go with let's say the Georgia competition, the first year of the quarterback that was
You're
ahead of
talking about
Justin
Jake
Fields.
Fromm?
Yeah, Jake Fromm, freshman season. He takes him to the national championship after the number one quarterback.
I didn't finish my statement. Let me finish my statement.
Okay. Sorry.
I understand the Jake Fromm situation. Jake Fromm took over like the second quarter of the first game of the season. Jacob Eason got hurt extremely early. I think they were playing in Appalachian State. Anyway, regardless of who they were playing, it was the second quarter of the first game of the season. So Jake Fromm had an entire season to get better. Cardell Jones stepped in a Big Ten championship game.
We did.
For the first time. And he played 3 near elite or elite opponents consecutive games and had to perform with cold from game experience. In terms of game experience, I can't think of another example like that. I can think of 1 game examples, but 3 game examples?
Yeah.
That's pretty astounding.
No. Yeah, I mean, I was pulling for him. I mean, with what I saw, I felt like when J.T. Barrett went out, Cardell Jones, the way he ran that offense, with help from Ezekiel Elliott and all those leaders turned out to be all stars in the NFL. I mean, that team was completely loaded. I know it's not going to any comparison right now because we are really, and I repeat, really, really, really young team. That's why I have so much patience because I know exactly how young we are. Like, we are extremely young, and COVID didn't help anything.
All right. Anything else?
No, that was it.
Well, I appreciate the call. Have a good night.
Thank you, Mark.
All right. Have a good one. All right. Let's keep it going. And again, even though I listed the topic for tonight's first show, got a doubleheader tonight, a split doubleheader tonight for you baseball fans. We will be back late tonight with our second call-in show tonight, previewing week 4. So even though I've tagged this Ohio State situation at quarterback as our topic of the night, I can certainly talk about anything with college football. Every show is always open to anything concerning college football. Here we go. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing well, DeAndre. How are you?
Good. Outside of Oregon game, I really haven't seen Ohio State play a lot. But short stats don't look bad. I mean, I know everybody say he overthrows the ball a lot.
Yes.
But he is a first-year starter, though.
Yes.
Just like with my boy DJ. And I could have said a lot of his offensive line, but the same thing with him. It's like he overthrows the ball, but he was a major baseball player too. And also, you also got to look at coaching too. Clemson needs a slot receiver. Will Taylor, or I can't remember the kid out of Florida that they recruited that's supposed to be pretty good as a slot receiver. But some things is because the coaches are designing it that way, and they haven't had time to adjust to the season. And I think people are giving Stroud a way too hard time. And I heard you mention Cornell Jones. Sometimes you can be so talented, you don't really need a great quarterback. Because look how many great quarterbacks NC State has had, and then look at their wins. And those quarterbacks would have played at Ohio State. They probably would have won a lot more national championships. But I think quarterbacks are overrated sometimes. I mean, Phillip Rivers and Russell Wilson, they were good, but when they ran up against teams that have more talent than them, we've seen what happened. I know Phillip Rivers beat Florida State a few times, but Russell Wilson really had a hard time at NC State when he was there. Now, when he went to Wisconsin, he fared a little bit better, because I think Wisconsin's talent was a little bit better than Florida State.
Well, I think one of the reasons why Ohio State fans are a bit interested to see what the other quarterbacks can do and have been dissatisfied with CJ Stroud is that, unlike the Clemson situation, regardless of how bad DJ's playing this year, we saw him last year. So we've already seen him be able to play well in big games. We've seen him beat Boston College. We've saw him put up 400 plus yards against Notre Dame. So he's proven himself to a certain extent, even though he's not playing well right now. And if anybody that knows anything about football watched them against Georgia, yes, he did not play well, but I don't know who would have played that well under those conditions. Their offensive line was just, the offensive line was just wrecked in that game.
Right. And you can go back and say the same thing about Georgia. But Georgia didn't score offensive touchdown either.
Sure. Well, I'm staying on the point of Clemson and DJ Uiagalelei versus CJ Stroud, that we've seen DJ do it before in high pressure situations against quality opponents. We saw him against maybe the best defense in the country, especially the defensive front seven. And again, by the time he got a chance to throw anything, he might have been so rattled because their offensive line just got buried consistently. CJ Stroud's offensive line's playing pretty well. They're not playing perfect. No offensive line does, but his offensive line's playing well. The other distinguishing, and he's never proven anything before. He hasn't had a 400-yard passing game at Notre Dame and put up 40 points, taking them to overtime. He's not come back from 28-6 against Boston College and shown that he can handle those kind of situations. Also, as you know better than I do, Clemson's got a real tough situation behind Uiagalelei on the bench versus Stroud has players on the bench that are just as highly, if not more highly rated than he was coming out of high school. And there was a quarterback battle. So those are the many differences between the Clemson situation and Ohio State.
Right. I really think Ohio State's defensive line, their defense is a problem, not CJ Stroud. So that defense, when it starts playing up to its potential, that defense is going to start shutting down a lot of teams, and you won't see them giving them that many points. They're going to get it right. Ohio State's too talented, especially at receiver, not to get it right eventually. I mean, sometimes that just happens. And I know as a Clemson fan, I make my jokes about, well, y'all had 6 weeks to get ready for the game. Y'all didn't play anybody, but y'all were the better team. And I just think people need to relax, and that Ohio State fans, and let that water out, Tony, and let these guys grow as a team and see what happens at the end of the year. You only lost one game to an Oregon team that was pretty good. Yeah, he was a 14.5-point favorite playing at home, but stuff like that happens. You just never know. You lost to Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, I think you said it several times, been 5-7. This Oregon team is way better than this Virginia Tech team was. So I just think that we're about to see. I think Ohio State's fine. I think people just jumping up too much on Stroud. Everybody talked about how good Ryan Day was as a junior. This is his second year coaching as the head coach. I just think they need to relax and let the man be, third year, and let us see what happens. Y'all lost a lot of talent last year off that team. Off the defensive side of the ball. I just think they need to just relax and let Sharp play. One loss. Who else would have packed? I can't think of anybody in this sort of Big Ten that's going to beat you. That has that type of physicality that Oregon brought. And y'all playing two defensive tackles. One that came in over the summer, and the other one came in mid-year. So they still babies. These guys you're playing super seniors nowadays. So I didn't think Ohio State fans need to relax. And you know how much I hate Ohio State, but I can admit that they got a lot of talent. I don't hate Ohio State as much as I hate Michigan, but I know. But hey, I'll catch you later on tonight, Mark. I put the over on the Appalachian State Marshall game, so I'm gonna watch it.
All right, give it a look.
I don't know. Hey, you know what? I need to find out why on the Patreon on your site. I don't know why I can't get into it. But on the other site where your boy does the updates for NCAA football, I can get into it. So I don't know what's going on with that. So I want to come over there and support that.
Wait a minute. You can't get into Patreon?
Yeah, remember I told you that a long time ago.
Yeah, you did.
I told you.
So
I don't know why.
So you mean you can't even sign up?
Mm-mm. I don't know why, but your boy, the other one that helps you, SG1, me and him communicate, and I know he's on your site sometimes too, and I can get on his. I don't get it.
Well, that's a problem.
So I'll find out. I'm going to look at it again tonight because I know it's somewhere in the description. So, hey, I'll get on with you later, so you'll see me up there.
I appreciate it, man. Have a good one.
All right. You too.
Well, we certainly want people on our Patreon, 42-28 against the spread. More importantly, I think, though, more effectively than 42-28 against the spread is that we've delivered, 6 of 8 upset picks. So think about this. If you know anything about the money line, if you're an underdog, it's going to pay off big. So you don't even need to hit 50%. If you're making money line picks with the underdog, then you don't need to hit 50% because Vegas is going to pay out more money than you're paying them for the bet. And so 45% of your upset picks, if you can hit on 40 to 45% of the upset picks, then you should be good to go. Depending on how large of an upset it is, affects the payoff. But we're 6-2. 6-2 upset picks thus far this season. So join us on Patreon. 3-0 last weekend, upset picks. All right. Voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. Who's on the line?
Patrick.
Hey, Patrick.
I'm from Columbus, Ohio. How you doing? But live down in Florida. Boy, I've watched the Buckeyes for a long time. I've got my thoughts on Ryan Day and the Buckeyes and everything that's going on. So I thought and especially the quarterback situation. So I thought I'd reach out. But overall, obviously Ryan Day, unbelievable, one of the best so far. Although he's only been a head coach for a short period, but one of the best out there. I think he showed a ton of try to keep it PG, but cojones by making the change on defense. It was needed. It was obvious. I think he demonstrated something that Urban didn't. I think Urban sometimes was too loyal to staff, and he allowed them in positions for too long. ... Ed Warner. But, the midseason change, great. CJ Stroud, great. I think it's ridiculous, the criticism that's coming his way. Given that he's a redshirt freshman, it's ridiculous. My two main, I guess, kind of concerns that I see from, a fan's perspective, which I understand I'm a fan and I don't know much about football, but the defensive philosophy is so, everything is really, based on having that safety. Speaking of the single high safety. And so to put yourself in such a vulnerable position, given the injuries that rack up, in football, I mean, to base a scheme on that when we already know the depth isn't there, you get an injury and what do? I mean, you're kind of caught with your pants down unless you've got, incredible depth, at that position. It just seems like an extremely risky move to go in that direction. Now I understand with, having to chase Young and all that because of the pressure, you can mask some of that, and maybe they thought, but it just seems like an extremely risky move, to not have backup plans in place.
Yep.
To be able to get out of that defense with anyway. The other thing that I see too is, their lack of physicality kind of worries me. And I wonder if, they didn't, have the one offensive line, given that there were a number of starters, what were they doing during preseason? Did the defensive line not, go against? I understand it takes some time for the offensive line to gel. I get all that. We got to give them time. It's only been 3, months, but what was the defensive line going up against, during preseason? Was it continuously going up against the ones where the ones not in there all that much? Because I have a hard time, understanding the lack of physicality that we're seeing. But anyway, the other thing that I see is, it is absurd with the defense in terms of being as bad as they are. I mean, we should never drop, given the talent we have, below 50, 75th worst defense in the country. I mean, that's like kind of the bare minimum. But anyway, I've talked your ear off. I'll let you kind of respond or see if you have any thoughts.
Well, your first point's a good one, that anytime you develop a plan or a strategy, you have to then determine that it's most likely not going to play out exactly to plan. So what could go wrong and how do we counter those things? So we could be talking about almost anything here. So in their case, they're developing a defense. They are preparing a defense for a season. So I would think that these are the things that you would take into consideration. Number one, what do our defensive coaches teach well? What do they know? What defenses do they know well and know how to teach, and what do they not know how to teach? And if they don't know how to teach certain defenses, but they think they're going to be based on, these coaches are obviously going to clinics, they're talking to other coaches with other programs, they're sharing information a lot. That's what they should be doing, and that's what the better ones do. And so you can make a determination, and we hear this from time to time, that a particular coach didn't know that offense or wasn't familiar with that defense, but they know about that side of the football, and they know enough football that they can adjust and say, you know what? I learned this myself, and now we're going to run it because this fits our personnel best, or I think this is going to be most effective. So anyway, there's a number of factors. You look at your personnel. Okay, where are we strong? Where are we weak between the three levels and between particular positions? Based on the type of athlete we have, obviously, the more talented you are, the more you tend to be aggressive versus being more conservative. If you're less talented, you take all those things into consideration. But then you start to kind of do what you're talking about and start to pull things apart to say, what if he gets hurt? What if he gets hurt? What if this happens? What if we get poor play from, we know that these three players are really good. We are a complete wild card with these three. And then the middle five are, we're pretty stable with, or whatever. And then you start to kind of tear yourself apart in terms of, and then you also look at your schedule and your opponents to say, what do they do well? What they don't do well. And that's why these guys work 18 hours a day constantly to figure these things out during the winter and form a plan, but form a plan that's adaptable and flexible and can be changed. So I don't have the answer to that question, but yeah, once Josh Proctor is taken out of that lineup, wow, he's a top 50 player coming out of high school. I don't know that he's achieved much in college. He's a good player, but his value to the team is even much greater than his production. It's just that he knows what he's doing, and he's really good at that spot, and they should have been able to determine.
But still wasn't Jordan Fuller, right? I mean, he had not proven himself like that. Now, he could have been this year, maybe.
Sure.
But beginning of the year, and that's what was bizarre, and I'm sorry to cut you off, to me, is that they wouldn't, you'd think, given the personnel, that they would have come into the year maybe 75% doing, other things and worked themselves the one high safety look, 25% of the time, and worked their way towards maybe the end of the year being, primarily a single high safety, given that they were banking on, him developing into that sort of Jordan Fuller, player. And given all the changes in the line, it's just, and when you look at Ryan Day's response in his, press conferences and how, you could tell I got the impression that he felt that this was a breach of trust, that he was misled in terms of where the defense was at, and that they were able to run this system. And he was furious that he was having to, step away from the offense. But I think a lot of people aren't, taking that into consideration too. That, they had to step away from the offense, not to mention the offensive, line coach has been out to get a back, surgery, and, Wilson's now having to cover the offensive line and the game plan and call the plays. So I give the offense will be fine. I think it's ridiculous to question the offense. They just need some time to develop. But from the defensive side, that's the kind of impression that, I got from Day, and I commend him for, taking the steps that he did. But it's a tricky situation. I think they'll get it fixed and figured out. But
it is a tricky situation. Because of, these guys get paid a lot of money. They're really good at what they do. There's somebody else on the other side that gets paid a lot of money, and they're good at what they do. And I say this all the time. Somebody's got to lose the game. So somebody's going to look bad walking off the field. They can't all be successful. For as good as they might all be on both sides of the ball, players and coaches, somebody's going to lose, and somebody technically is going to fail on Saturday. And Ohio State obviously has a very high winning percentage in taking care of business, 90+%. But in thinking about the number of reps that these players receive, and then the various offenses that they can face and the number of plays. Take any one individual player that doesn't have much experience and put them in a situation on the field. They may have only seen this formation on tape once or never, or and then the plays run off the formation, and they just have to go through their keys to try to respond to that. But they may have never seen that before. Maybe the play that Oregon kept running to the left and running for 20 and 40 yards, that Ohio State defense had never seen that before. Now it's Kerry Combs' responsibility, even if he had never seen that play. And I have no idea what Oregon runs. I don't know their offense that well. I hadn't seen them play this year. Of course, they only had played one game to know that that was a staple of their offense or not. But it's his responsibility to be able to respond to that and to fix it so it doesn't happen again. After you get gashed for 25 yards on that play, that should be the last time you get gashed.
Right. Absolutely. I think people get extremely frustrated about, and rightfully so, but obviously as fans, we all overreact, right? But I don't recall, seeing teams, Alabama's had their ups and downs with their defenses, but, and I get it. Nick Saban's a defensive mind coach. Well, like in terms of they've had their off games, they've had years where they're not as good as they've been previously. Now they've never dropped, below a certain threshold, which I think that's the expectation that Ohio State fans have, is that we don't drop below a certain, threshold in the so-called rebuilding years, right? Or when we have a lot of young talent. I think it's undeniable that there is a serious issue, and hence why Ryan Day made the change that he made. But, to get gashed as we've been gashed, I have not seen Alabama, repeatedly play after play, and that's right. And so, there's where, and hence again why he made the change that he made. But I think that if people are very sensitive to it because we've been through this rodeo recently, where our defense was a huge liability for us, and he made the change. And Shiana moved on, which obviously Shiana knows what he's doing. I think he just needed. I'm sure there was a kind of a mutual, parting of ways there, because obviously look at what he's doing right now at, Rutgers. But, so anyway, I'm kind of trailing on, but I understand. I just think that we've passed the threshold of what's acceptable. Cause the defense is it's pathetic, with the talent that they have. It's absurd that it's this bad. It really is. I mean, again, I'd understand if they started off the year, the first two games, they were the 50th worst or 70th worst, and then they progressed up and they were the 20th best or 25th or 30th, right? But to regress as bad as they had, it's just, yeah.
And there's there's three facets involved. Of course, you recruit the players, you sign the players. So you sign the best players that you can find for your system and just flat out the best, most talented people. And then number two, you develop them individually as players. You develop the cornerbacks as cornerbacks and teach them the right techniques. Every position, you develop them as players. You teach them the best way to play that position. Then number three, you put together a scheme that has all the ingredients we talked about a few minutes ago. And then you apply it to the game, and then you make adjustments. And what's astounding is that there's 11 players on the field. Ohio State, just like any other defense, probably plays 16 or 18 guys on a fairly regular basis, if not more. I doubt if any of those guys are 3 stars. There might be a couple. So I can't imagine that all of them are underachieving. Like all of them did not take to the coaching that they were given. So that's why you point to the coaches and say, what's going on here is because you just can't imagine that all those guys are playing below their abilities. You got to think it's scheme and development that are the issues.
Well, if you look, I mean, players mimic coaches, right? And this idea that, they're not being decisive. They're not reacting, being decisive. And you see that from the coaches. They can't decide who the hell is going to play. I mean, it's a coach's job to determine who the best players are, to then create a cohesive unit that can all work together to make up a defense. Same on the offensive side. And the fact that the coaches couldn't determine who are the best players to play, and they've just rotated players. I think it makes complete sense why the kids are playing the way they're playing, because the coaches, I mean, that's what they're doing. They can't decide. They can't make up their mind. They can't create a certain set criteria that you meet this, you're the best player, you're playing, you're the starting person. Work through that, create that cohesion, work together. If somebody isn't working, great. You move one person out, you bring somebody else in new and test that person out. But to pick, I mean, they're just tossing shit out there. Yep. And it's just chaos. I mean, that's what you see with the defense. I mean, I don't blame the players one bit, because it's chaotic, and it's just so shocking coming from Ohio State. It leaves me. I'm very curious to get your thoughts. Do you think that Kerry Combs? I get it, Kerry Combs. Everybody loved him. He did an unbelievable job, with the secondary prior to heading off to the NFL. Do you think at all, and I'm getting into the hype, anyway, but this was put in place before Urban left, and that the idea was that Kerry went off, got experience in the NFL, and would come back? I get this itchy feeling that could have been the case, given that, he really didn't look at anybody else. The guy hasn't coordinated the defense. Now, granted, I get it. He's a hell of a recruiter, which that's very, very important. But I don't know. I get this itchy feeling that that's something that may have been discussed, bringing Kerry back at some point.
Could be.
But anyway.
Well, I better move on. I appreciate the call.
All right. I'll let you go. Yep.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Mark. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye-bye.
All right. Let's keep it rolling. As somebody mentioned to me the other night, they were a bit irritated about it being an Ohio State show. These are never tabbed as Ohio State shows. We can call about anything. We can talk about anything. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Jay from Detroit.
Hey, man. How's it going?
I'm all right. How you doing today? You all right?
I'm good.
All right. I'm a Ohio State fan from Detroit, and I see that you got the topic. You got about the quarterback situation. So about me being an Ohio State fan, living in Detroit, Michigan, I see a lot of stuff about CJ Stroud, and then this guy yours. I guess he just came out of high school, whatever. And everybody's saying on the board, like, well, get rid of Stroud. This is before he even took one snap. You understand what I'm saying? So I watched Ohio State quarterbacks for years, from Justice Wick, you know what I'm saying? I mean, all the way to Troy Smith, I'm trying to get up their age now, but I look at they don't want to get a guy a chance from the start. It seems like, I'm on the boards every day with them, you know what I'm saying? I listen to the videos and everything. Before this guy even took one snap, when he was named the starting quarterback at Ohio State, it was oh, he's going to be a bust. I'm like, wow, man, Ohio State usually don't be like that. You know what I'm saying? So he's not running the ball enough. He's not throwing the ball enough. Okay, the first game when they played Minnesota, I guess they didn't have the best game in the world. The running back, he ran so many yards on him. I thought he did pretty good. You know what I'm saying?
The second game, he threw 400 yards. But what everybody say is he did that because it was like cleanup time. It wasn't really that. So basically, they were saying like, okay, we'll get him out of here. He's not a good quarterback. Now I'm not blaming everybody for that. But my thing is, I know players listen to some of these shows, and I know players, they sit back and understand what's going on, right? So you can put stress on people, but you also have fans that come in and say, oh, this guy got to go. And the coaches, they hear the stuff. They hear the boos and stuff. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I look at Ryan Day, and I see like players transferring out. Not a whole lot, but do you remember back in 2019 when Ohio State played USC in the Rose Bowl?
What year?
Are you still there?
Yes.
In 2019. Oh, okay. And you had a guy on the team.
Whoa.
His name was
Who played
Brandon White.
Whoa. Who played in the Rose Bowl in 2019?
It was Ohio State and USC, right?
Are you talking about Ohio State playing? Whoa. Hang on. You talking about Ohio State playing USC in the Cotton Bowl 2 years before that, or are you talking about Ohio State playing Washington in the Rose Bowl?
I thought they played. You know what? I could be wrong, but I know it's Urban Meyer's first year ever being in the Rose Bowl, winning the Rose Bowl.
His
right?
first
Let me get it
year.
right. Okay,
Whoa. His first year?
No. You remember right before he retired?
His last
Urban Meyer,
year.
he won the Rose Bowl.
Yes,
Remember that?
they played Washington in the Rose Bowl. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, that's right. The Washington Huskies. Okay. He played the Washington Huskies in the Rose Bowl. He had a player on the team. His name was Brandon White. You remember him?
Yes, I
Played
do.
on defense?
Yep.
Okay, he was MVP. Now, he came back the next year, and he didn't really get a lot of run time because I guess Ryan Day, he put a new defense. He put a new scheme in there. But, it's like ever since the players like that was leaving, it's like, the defensive backs haven't really been that good, like the cornerbacks. You had some, over the years and stuff. But basically what I'm calling this, I'm Ohio State fan to the end, but it's like a lot of fans, they want to see what they really want to see on the field. I mean, I ain't making no color thing, but it's like CJ Stroud, even during the spring game, he was pushed to the limit. You hear him, oh, he's going to be a bust. I'm like, okay, wow, that's fine. He's going to be this and be that. And I'm like, wow, they ain't give him a chance. So every single game, I watch this guy play. It's just, boo, he's this, he's that. I don't think he's really a bad player. And I know they say he got an injury and all that stuff, right? So maybe it was time to sit him down. He don't really want to playing like that. But he said he's going to play. And now they put the other quarterbacks in a position like, well, they can do this and do that. But at the end of the day, all of them freshmen, all of them, you got red shirt or some tags on them. So I hope they don't expect the other quarterbacks to come in and do much better than he did. But let's hope that Ohio State do find a quarterback that really can stand in there, do what he got to do. But I don't like the way the fans are dictating the game right now. And they, they booing. And I know everybody got their opinion to say what they want to say. But at the end of the day, man, that's not really fair to the players at all. So I see he was throwing like floating balls all day. I didn't see Bosman play at Ohio State. I didn't see a lot of people at Ohio State play. You know what I mean? So the way the fans are talking is like, this is the worst quarterback ever to play at Ohio State. He only played 3 games so far.
Well, he's definitely not the worst quarterback to play at Ohio State. I can certainly run those guys down. But he also is following 2 first-round NFL draft picks.
I understand. That's true. Justin Fields is there. And, we know Justin, and, I tell a lot of people, I say Justin fans, Justin Fields was a great player there, but he was recruited by Georgia. So you look at Dwayne Haskins, he was recruited by Ohio State. Troy Smith was recruited by Ohio State. Justin Wood was recruited by Ohio State. You know what I mean? J.T. Barrett. So Justin Fields did come in for 2 years, right? He played 2 years at Ohio State, and he did a great job. But at the end of the day, he wasn't really like a top recruiter from the state. He wasn't, a top recruiter that they was going after, during that time. So he ended up signing with Georgia. What I'm saying is that even Stroud going behind 2 players like that, you know what I mean? That's true. Because Haskins, they had to go behind Barrett and all them players too. But at the end of the day, I never seen the fans act like this before, man. And I look at the fans and be like, wow, so if it's really that bad, even when he was in a spring game, they were like, oh, he's terrible. And he did great in the spring game. I thought all the quarterbacks did pretty good. You know what I mean? So it was real close. And then next thing Ryan Day said, well, it's kind of, he's kind of moving up. He's kind of taking a step further than other quarterbacks. So I hope the new quarterback come in and do very well, man, because I'm a Ohio State fan. I want Ohio State to win, you know. And then they kill me to see them lose to Michigan this year. You know what I mean?
That's the game. Of course,
Can
it's
you
going
hear
to
me?
hurt to lose to Michigan.
Yeah, man. But yeah, because
Don't assume
everybody.
that, though.
I'm not blaming the team. Yeah, but I hate to see them lose to Michigan, man. I mean, I live in Michigan, man. That'd be the worst thing. I got my Ohio State flag horses and everything, but at the end of the day, man, the fans are really being terrible now. I mean, I know they got their opinion. They can call me terrible as well, but these fans are terrible, man. You know, I mean, I hear everything in the chat rooms. I go to different chat rooms, all on Facebook and everything. You know, all online, and these fans really want this quarterback out of here. Now he's out of here, and like I said before, maybe if he'd have went to USC and Chris Olave went over there, maybe that coach would still be over there coaching right now. What do you think?
Oh, if Stroud and Olave were at USC?
No, I said if they're from California, right? If
Yes.
they would have stayed home and played for Southern Cal, maybe that Clay dude would still be coaching right now.
Well, I can't imagine that C.J. Stroud would be the starting quarterback at USC. That would not be the case.
I mean,
he would be a
yeah, but
backup
that guy they
quarterback
got
at
right now,
USC.
what is
No, Keaton Slovis is
Yeah,
a better
but I mean,
quarterback
that
than
quarterback they
C.J.
got-
Stroud right now.
Well, I mean,
Chris
I
Olave
hear what
would be
you're
a
saying,
great
but I'm just
addition,
saying-
but he would also be an addition to the best unit on the field. But the best positional unit for USC the last 5 years has been wide receiver. So Chris Olave would be a welcome addition, but that's not where they would need help. But I get your point.
Okay.
Clay Helton needed to recruit better and keep Southern California kids right
Yeah.
at home. No doubt. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, man. Well, I
Yeah.
appreciate the call.
Hey, all right, take care, man. You have
a good one.
Go Buckeyes.
Thank you so much.
All right. Okay.
Call in from the Motor City there. All right, let's keep rolling here. The voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Zach from Columbus, one of the irate Ohio State football callers.
Okay.
Uh,
There you go.
Well, you know, I was one of the two callers that you entitled video irate Ohio
Yes.
State callers.
I
That's a
did.
popular video. That video has like 6,000 views.
There you go. You're
Anyways,
famous.
interesting. Yeah, right. Interesting that, surprising. I mean, if you watch Ryan Day's press conference yesterday, he was pretty intransigent. He was unwilling. You know, he was pretty. C.J. Stroud is our starter. You know, really not even entertaining putting in a second quarterback, stating that basically that C.J. needs the reps. He needs the reps. Not worried about even getting the other guys reps per se. So really intransigent. And then today, like a 180, complete 180. Now all of a sudden C.J. Stroud is sitting, apparently because he has, a shoulder injury. But yesterday that didn't seem to be a concern in any way. But today it seems to be, he needs to sit. Interesting about yesterday's conference. If you watch the press conference with Ryan Day yesterday, he had a barrage of questions as it relates to, hey, if you're going to put in backup quarterbacks, isn't this upcoming Saturday game, isn't that the time? Is that the most advantageous time to put in, a second or third string to see what we have besides C.J. Stroud? So he was asked that multiple times, constantly over and over again. So and I'm sure, I have no doubt that C.J. has an injury, but I think a football coach listens and takes a pulse of the fan base and goes, oh, okay, the fan base is definitely wanting to see, these, and I'm thinking that may have been a factor in this decision making. I mean, maybe not. I'm not saying that it was, the primary factor, but I think it played a role to some degree because it sounds like CJ, believes that he's well enough to play a game. He doesn't want to sit, and I understand a young kid's not going to want to sit. They're competitors, so they're always going to want to be in the game. But it sounds like this is a conversation between Ryan Day and C.J. Stroud, and maybe Ryan Day did a little bit of coaxing and going, look, let's get you rest so you're ready, going into Big Ten play.
If I was
man,
Ryan Day's boss, if I was Gene Smith or anyone within the administration, and I knew that Ryan Day was making decisions based on appeasing the fans, my confidence in him would plummet to zero.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying that
he's a football expert. He has coaches that are football experts, apparently, that are being paid millions of dollars a year, that see these guys every day of the year, lift weights, watch film, discuss football with them to know their acumen, watch them on a practice field, watch them in games with a coach's eye. And we got a bunch of knuckleheads sitting in Ohio Stadium every week and watching on TV that know a particle of dust of football knowledge compared to those people that we're paying millions of dollars to make those evaluations. And he's going to make decisions based on their opinions.
Well, look, just a couple days ago, you were calling the fans who were calling for CJ to have a seat. You were calling those fans alarmists. And now all of a sudden, the coaching staff seems to be sitting CJ to see what we have.
I don't know if I used the word alarmist.
You did with Steve Deese. You used the word alarmist.
Okay. Well, yeah. I will say that I've consistently said ever since CJ Stroud stepped on the field and made good plays and bad plays that I would rate his performance to be pretty marginal. It's not horrible, like get him off the field, bench him. This is obvious that he needs to go, that regardless of what these other guys are showing on the practice field, one of them needs to start, nor do I think that he's passed with flying colors. I've consistently stated that I think we've seen good and bad, and it's understandable based on playing quality opponents. He's probably played better opponents through 3 games than any quarterback I can imagine at Ohio State has had to face his first 3 weeks. And that he's, again, played decent would be about the best word that I can think of right now. Decent. So my point has consistently been that there is only one group of people that have been able to watch these quarterbacks play day in and day out, and that's Ryan Day and his coaching staff to evaluate who's the best quarterback. Well, he made a decision that it was CJ Stroud. Now, of course, that quarterback battle might have been a gaping gap between 1 and 2, or it may have been razor thin between 1 and 2.
Hello?
Ryan Day smartly communicated to us that CJ Stroud, based on all the variables, had decidedly, because he doesn't want a quarterback controversy or there to be questioning of his decision, that he was the clear choice. Now, whether he was the clear choice or not, we'll never know. But he won the job, and therefore then it's going to come down to him performing on the field to keep his job. And there's questions as to whether he's performing at a standard as to whether he should keep his job. And only Ryan Day can compare what CJ Stroud's doing on Saturday and in practice with what Kyle McCord and Jack Miller are doing on the practice field and make that comparison. Well, he's taken this opportunity, whether the injury factors into it or not, he's taken this opportunity to give the other 2 quarterbacks a look.
Hello, can you hear me, Mark?
Yes, I can. Hello? Maybe we lost our caller. Hello. All right. We will move it on to the next caller here at the Voice of College Football.
I'm here.
Welcome in. Hello.
Hi, this is Terry.
Hey, Jerry. What's going on?
Terry here.
I'm good. What's up?
Hey, only one question. I'm wondering if... Oh, not much. I'm just wondering if Ryan Day plays McCord halfway through the game and McCord runs up to score and goes up 4 touchdowns. Do you think that would be uncomfortable, or do you think Day would split
his losses at that time and give the ball to Miller.
Well, it sounds like he has a plan to play both quarterbacks regardless. So unless the completely unforeseen happens and this is a game into the fourth quarter, it sounds like Ryan Day has a plan to play both quarterbacks to some degree, whether that's 50-50 or 80-20. We only know that Kyle McCord has taken the first team or the second team reps, and therefore we would assume that he's going to be the starter and receive at least 50-50, if not most of the snaps. So your question is, if he goes out there and lights it up, whether Day is going to take him off the field intentionally so it doesn't look bad on Stroud and create more controversy. I would think that he's got a plan and he's generally going to stick to it unless the game goes in a direction that he's not planning. And that, again, if he's making decisions based on what the fans think, then this is off the rails, because the fans are going to look at stat sheets and scoreboards when they're not taking into consideration the opponent. So Kyle McCord should go out there and have a great game, or
yeah,
you know, should perform well to a certain extent. I shouldn't put that much on him in his first time playing.
I was just a little nervous. He'd go out there, play very conservative, put up very few yards. Then when he got the hot hand, he'd be pulled out, and we wouldn't know what his potential was.
Well, it's only going to be one game, and it's probably going to be roughly a half to 3/4 of a game for Kyle McCord. So we are going to find out quite a bit, but we're not going to see his ceiling. They're not going to let him. I know Ryan Day says that they run their game plan and they go for it and they don't play conservatively, and I get that, but they're going to protect him. And CJ Stroud came out his first 4 or 5 throws against Minnesota and threw very conservative passes. I think they're going to want him to get comfortable before they possibly take some shots. Yeah, it's going to be intriguing to a certain extent just to see how well he throws the ball and if he's on time and he makes good decisions, and if there's some semblance of a pass rush once in a while, how he responds to that.
If you had to spin the dice by the end of the season in the Michigan game, what would your dice land on?
I'm sorry, what would that be? It's the Michigan game, and what would I have to decide?
Let's say we're spinning the wheel and of the Big Ten, and you had to roll your dice. What would you want to land on? What team? Michigan, Penn State, Rutgers?
Okay, we're spinning a wheel with Big Ten teams on the wheel, and it lands on who, and what does that mean? I'm not following your game.
Yeah, where would you want to put your money?
Oh, to win the Big Ten?
Yeah.
Ohio State.
Where would you put your money?
Ohio State 1, Penn State 2. Iowa 3, Wisconsin 4, Michigan 5. All right. Well, I appreciate the call.
All right, thanks.
Have a good one.
Fun. Okay, bye-bye.
We had an interesting and roundabout way of asking me who I'm predicting or think is going to win the Big Ten in what order. If you could spin a wheel or roll the dice. All right. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark. How's it going? This is Emmanuel.
Hey, Emmanuel. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. I've always got to call in and, talk USC Trojans because I know no one talks about them.
I'm ready to talk
So I
about
figure I might
somebody
as well
else.
bring it up.
I got to tell you that we run a national college football show here. I don't want to be pegged as some kind of homer that talks about the Buckeyes all the time. I know that I put it on the title of the stream, but I hope that people have watched enough to know that I'll take calls and comments on anything.
No, and yeah, I appreciate that. But yeah, hey, you know what? Whatever the fans want to talk about, I think it's great that you let them talk about it. If it's 100 Ohio State fans, well, that's everyone else's fault for not calling in, right?
That's it. What about USC?
The reason So back to the topic at hand. The reason I mention USC is because Reggie Bush named who he thinks should take the position, and I actually like it.
Okay.
It's a bit out there.
All right.
Deion Sanders. Your thoughts?
I have no idea at this point what Deion Sanders is doing at, where is he? Jackson State? Jackson State?
Jackson State, yeah.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Oh, my goodness. Why? Why is that needed?
Well, for me, it ultimately comes to recruiting is what matters in college football.
Sure.
And I mean, I think if they hired a Deion Sanders who's not necessarily, I haven't seen too much of Jackson State. I've seen a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, it would, if he would be a monster recruiter. I think whether he would have gone to Florida State, whether he would have gone, and if he goes to USC, which I do think it's possible, the kind of recruiting that he would bring in, I think would settle a lot of the debate of whether coaching matters more or whether recruiting matters more than coaching. And I'm leaning towards at the college football level that yes. I think an unfair example is to have Saban and whoever the coaches at Vanderbilt switch teams and have them coach that team and see who has a better season. Mm-hmm. That's kind of a extreme example, but it also goes to show how important recruiting is.
Well, of course, you have to have the players. You have to have the players to win. And I have brought up the same scenario that you just did countless times. That if you took Nick Saban and sent him off to Oregon State, let's say as soon as the college football season's over, I would be fascinated to see him coach through the entire winter, spring practice, summer, into the fall, and have to coach Oregon State and see how good he could make them in the span of a year. I would be fascinated to see that. That would be phenomenal to see that. But we do know that guys like Urban Meyer went wherever they went and they immediately won. So there is something to coaching. But you need the guys on the
Urban
field.
Meyer went to.
Yep.
He went to big programs,
Yes,
he went, Ohio State, Florida.
Yeah. He also went to Bowling Green to start out, and he turned them around immediately, and he went to Utah, and they went 13-0 pretty quickly. And then, yeah, so in Florida was losing 5 games, and then he won national championship. So, and that was coaching and culture and being able to do all those things, but it's also getting the right players on the roster. Yes.
Was he the coach of Utah when they beat Alabama?
He was the coach of Utah when they had Alex Smith and went undefeated. He was the coach at Florida.
That's right.
That beat Alabama the game before they lost to Utah with Kyle Whittingham. That was Nick Saban's second year that they lost to Utah in the Sugar Bowl.
Was that the 08 Utah team that was 08, right? That beat Alabama?
Yeah. So Urban Meyer was in Florida winning the national championship.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That Utah team was probably the best team in the country.
Well, I don't know about that.
No? Because, Alabama had a phenomenal year at the SEC.
Sure.
And I mean, that if you watch that game, Utah destroyed them. I mean, Alabama had no idea how to defend their defense.
Yeah. Yeah, I vaguely remember the game. I watched the game. I think it was 31-17 was the final, if I recall. Brian Johnson was the Utah starting quarterback. And yeah, I would just have to question Utah's schedule and them being able to repeat that game after game after game after game.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, so I mean, to kind of close it out, because I know you got a lot more callers, if you had to basically choose a coach for USC, do you want to bring in the recruiter that can get those Southern California talent, or the coach that's just a great coach?
I'll take the recruiter who can be a CEO and have an offensive and a defensive coordinator that are top notch.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you don't have a good X's and O's coach, then you better have an offensive and defensive coordinator. You know, the classic example of this goes back to the 1950s New York Giants, where Vince Lombardi was the offensive coordinator and Tom Landry was the defensive coordinator. So you have arguably the two greatest coaches in the history of pro football. And I can't even remember who the head coach was because he was a non-entity. But in terms of Deion Sanders at USC, I do get the obvious appeal of that he's going to connect to these kids. I do kind of question whether he's as locked in or as popular and connected to them as you would think. None of them saw Deion Sanders play. They're all too young. Yeah. And I also think that his energy, his charisma, whatever you want to say about it, his celebrity would get him in the door. I don't know in the long run when people make decisions, especially when their family influences their decision to make a call on where you're going to go play football and who's going to develop you for the NFL and who's going to, you know, how, depending on how important education is and location and all those things, that I think the Deion Sanders celebrity is a little bit overplayed. It wouldn't affect me and my son, we could care less. Like it wouldn't, okay, great. Deion Sanders is coming. That'll be a fun conversation. That'll be fun. That'll be nice. It'll be interesting, or he might be annoying. I don't know. I guess I just look at things a little bit differently. I wouldn't be like wowed by, wow, Deion Sanders is here. I'd be like, well, my son's a 5-star cornerback and we're going to make the best decision possible.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, speaking on that, with, you know, like I said, I don't want to take too much of your time, but if you could play Division I football,
yes,
who would you play for?
Well, I grew up an Ohio State fan, so maybe the better question would be, if Ohio State's out of the mix, who would I play for?
Yeah, who would you play for? Who would you like to say, this is the coach I'd run through a wall for?
Okay, so I tend not to be the person that says, okay, I'm going to jump on the bandwagon at Alabama and win a national championship or 2 or 3 and just be in the line of the factory line going to the NFL. I would want to go to a program that had a chance to win, that had the facilities and the resources to win, but I would want to be a difference maker. So I would go somewhere like, North Carolina or Penn State, or, you know, somewhere where if I could evaluate, I trusted the coach, I had confidence in the coach, I had confidence in this place has the facilities and they're recruiting out of their minds, and it's, you know, it's close, but I can make a difference. I can make a difference. And if I do something here, these people haven't won championships, so I could be a difference maker. That's where I would go, somewhere like that.
Yeah. And yeah, How about the personality? I guess personality of the coach. I mean, who would you pick as far as personality?
Oh, in terms of the coach, I'm impressed with Mac Brown. I'm impressed with James Franklin, maybe not necessarily as a game coach, but a guy that is a leader of men and developer of young men. I like PJ Fleck. I know he turns off some people, but I like PJ Fleck. Those are the coaches that come to mind that have some type of charisma, and they're very different personalities, what I just pointed out, but those are the guys that appeal to me. I've heard great things about David Shaw.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, those are the guys I think of. Like, if I could play Division I, I'd want to play for either Fleck, Franklin, Shaw, or I heard Mario Cristobal. The players absolutely love him.
Yeah. Dabo's players love him. I have no problem with Dabo.
Yeah.
I've posted a couple videos.
Oh, and Dabo, yes. Dabo was the other guy, yeah.
I've blasted Dabo a couple times because I think he's whined a few times and made excuses and complained about the stupidest things. So I don't agree with him all the time, but I think he's good for college football, and I think he's genuinely invested in his team and his young men.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? A couple of weeks ago, there was a gentleman that called in pretty much disappointed that his son had chosen Memphis to go play football for.
I recall that.
And you know what? I saw the coach after they beat Mississippi State. And that's how you can tell whether the kids really like the coach. Because after a win, if it's mainly like shoulder pats and like passing by and just patting them on the shoulder pad, that tells me that the coach and the player see it more as a business, right? But the way that they came up and the hugs that they were giving this guy and how he embraced his team, I think goes to show probably why that kid chose that program.
Okay. That's interesting that you say that, because you can sometimes tell the response of these teams after they win a big game, whether this is, video that they shoot in the locker room or on the field. And even though the players are out, they're the ones executing and they're the ones that get it done on the field, you can tell by that response, or when they obviously are interviewed, how much they credit the coach. Sometimes, the coach has such an impact that the players just feel like, this guy made it happen. He told us what to do. He developed me as a player. He developed me as a young man. He's the reason we're here accomplishing.
Absolutely. And who's the one guy I'll never forget, the gentleman that went to UCF remember that Notre Dame, he lied about his resume? What
George
was his name?
O'Leary. George
O'Leary.
Yep.
So UCF wins a bowl game, and the players do not put the Gatorade on him. And the commentator said they dare not put Gatorade on him. He's not that kind of a guy.
Yeah.
And they didn't. It seemed like his players, in many ways, kind of feared him. So,
yeah, that's not
I think maybe he was just the old school, the old school of football, which I had never seen a coach never get doused, with Gatorade after a bowl win.
Well, the only that brings to mind, the only other time I saw something similar to that was, you're probably aware, this started with Bill Parcells with the New York Giants, and Carl Banks, LT, whomever else on the Giants defense at the time, Harry Carson and those guys, they were the ones who started Jim Burt started the Gatorade shower. This was during their Super Bowl championship season, 1986. And I believe that's obviously was the culmination of them accomplishing a Super Bowl championship. They may have started it a couple of years earlier, but they were the ones that started that. Well, there was a Monday night game in which the Dallas Cowboys won a game, and Tom Landry was the head coach. Well, Tom Landry was, regal. He was, royalty in coaching, and just had the reputation that, he's not the guy that you joke around with, stone faced, has complete control of his team, just not a player's coach and an old school guy and all of that. And the players were preparing to dump Gatorade on him, or so we thought, Gatorade. And this was the big joke. And so when they turned over the Gatorade bucket over Tom Landry's head, it was full of towels, and it just dumped a couple towels on him. But, they wouldn't dump Gatorade on Tom Landry.
Oh man, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. Awesome. Hey, Mark, I really appreciate you taking the time and answering my call.
Absolutely. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it.
All right.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. We got, I believe, 2 callers on the line. Let's take these 2 calls, and then we can all go watch some football. I'm going to cook some dinner, watch some football, and we'll come back late tonight. All right. Let's see who's on the line. Hello.
Hey, Mark, it's Zach from Columbus. Hey, we got disconnected. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay.
Really quick, it is possible for US. There's a conventional wisdom that there's a coach out there that USC cannot get, Urban Meyer, but it's completely possible they could get Urban Meyer. There was another coach back in the 90s who was coaching another Florida team. And he came out multiple times early in that season and said, I've addressed these rumors. I've told you I'm coaching here. I'm not going back to college. This is where I'm staying. He said that multiple times throughout that season. And in the end, he ended up at Alabama, Nick Saban, when he was coaching for the Dolphins. So if the experiment for Urban Meyer doesn't go well in the NFL his first year, it's not beyond the realm of imagination. USC could bring in Urban Meyer. I think Urban Meyer's even said that, USC is one of those like dream jobs where, you want to go coach if that opportunity ever came up. So I think it's still a possibility, especially when you look at the path Nick Saban took. I know Nick Saban's wife had a lot to do with that because, I guess a wife in the NFL doesn't have as much of a role in the program as the wife would in a college football setting. That's interesting that it could still happen. Anyways, we were originally talking about CJ Stroud, and my final point in essence is it is not going to take much to create a quarterback controversy in Columbus.
We already have
one of the 2 quarterbacks.
We already have one, and the second and third guys haven't even thrown a pass.
Right. I'm not sure. I think we have a controversy. The fans are clamoring to see one of the other quarterbacks because CJ overthrow Stroud is not an elite quarterback. Not, and I understand but he's not able. If one of these quarterbacks come in and he can throw, he doesn't overthrow guys. He plays mistake free. He can get, you have 2 first-round wide receivers, one who isn't even being utilized. If a quarterback can get in there and start utilizing your 2 best wide receivers, arguably in all of college football, if he can get in there and get these guys involved, and the offense all of a sudden lights up, you're going to have a quarterback controversy. It's going to be a bigger controversy because if these guys come in and they don't do as well, or they do just as well as CJ Stroud, or they're overthrowing, maybe they throw an INT, then I think that you're going to see a lot of the clamoring maybe go away because there's the conventional wisdom was, well, all these guys, there is no it factor for any of them, which would be, I think that would be bad news for Ohio State. But I think that it's not going. If one of these quarterbacks have a good performance, you're going to have a bigger, a bigger quarterback controversy than you already have.
Absolutely.
And I think that a lot of people, a lot of the pundits, a lot of the guys on the Buckeye Scoop who you have on, a lot of them have been saying, maybe Ryan Day's trying to avoid by keeping these other guys on the bench. Maybe he's trying to avoid a quarterback controversy. He doesn't. That's not something that he's looking forward to. He doesn't want to, go through that. But it looks like at this point, it may be unavoidable if one of these quarterbacks perform well.
Yeah. He also may have seen enough out of CJ Stroud to think I can develop him. And again, I chose him for a reason. All right. Very good. I appreciate the call.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Let's take our last 2 calls of the early session here at the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
The early session. There's another live show later.
Oh, we're going live tonight. Absolutely, we are.
All right. Hey, it's George.
George.
It's George.
Hopefully, you're not going to ask me about the Ohio State quarterback situation.
No, I'm leaving that up to Ryan Day.
Thank you. I am too.
I don't know what people are doing second guessing these coaches making $8 million a year.
I don't have any issue with I second guess them from time to time. I think that there are opportunities to second guess them. That's why we're here. But I think it gets a bit ridiculous at times, for sure.
And we don't have any of the information. We don't know if the guy has an ingrown little toenail. We don't know if he broke up with it. We don't know what they're basing these decisions on all the time.
We also, as fans, make claims for players and call for players to play that we've never even seen play. That's what's going on right now. That have never we don't see them play in practice. They've never played in a game.
Can you imagine if fans actually had input into this by online polling, and we were doing weird stuff like taking out quarterbacks and switching up the receivers, and we better not go there. Be like, put number 9 in.
Well, that's what a couple of callers ago said, that do you think that Ryan Day is going to do this or that based on the fans, appeasing the fans and pleasing the fans to give some other time to these quarterbacks? And I said, if I'm Ryan Day's boss and I believe that he's making decisions based on what he thinks the fans think or what they want, shoot, my confidence level in him would drop to 0. And as soon as he started losing a couple of games, he'd be out the door. Not because he lost a couple of games, but because I figured this guy's not a leader. Get him out of here.
Hey, I forgot to tell you something for 2 or 3 years of calling you. I've always wanted to say something to you.
Okay.
Because people make comments in the chat section, and they always say, Mark, hang up on this guy. Not me, just in general, right? Like you'll go on sometimes 30 minutes with a call, right?
Well,
right.
That's a bit
This
much.
is what I wanted to tell you years ago.
Yep.
You've built up your goodwill now. Everybody knows what a good guy you are. What I want you to do is practice what you see some other, in the past life, I've seen these call-in show hosts, and they have this cool way of segueing to another call. Like you end a sentence and they go, thank you for the call. And they answer the next one. There is no goodbye. You need to incorporate that into your repertoire of cool stuff you do. And you need to explain to people that may happen when you're backlogged on the phone call list and somebody takes a breath, you know?
Well, I have
you
tried
can
to be
start by practicing with me when we get done tonight. Just practice on me.
Well, George,
just
you don't
segue,
think that there
for the call.
You don't think that there have been a number of times in which I've cut you short and gotten you off the phone?
You're okay, but you're right. Yeah, I'm the only guy you practice with. You need to expand that.
I've been practicing with more people recently. I've been practicing with more recently, that's for sure. Just because when I hear people starting to repeat themselves, I'm thinking, okay, and nobody needs to hear your third point for the third time. Let's keep it going.
These people in the chat are hilarious. Shankopotamus just said George is a walk-on. Give him a break. R.W. Tyndall said, get your own show, George.
Well, George, you do have a special dispensation here, George, where I let you call in twice at times. George has the title belt for most comments made to the channel, which will never be broken. And for that and for many other reasons, George has a special place on our channel.
Right. Listen, if they want to be like me, sometimes I click on your show, I let the commercial run, and then another one if there's another one, and then I click on visit sponsor because I know that matters to the damn algorithm. I don't ever buy anything, but I go through that process. Not every day, not all the time, but once a month, twice a month, you know.
You actually just reminded me of something, George, that I need to check from time to time
Yeah.
because it really annoys me because every so often, it doesn't happen much. Somebody will comment, okay, I wanted to watch this video, but there were too many damn commercials. And then I'll check because there's a place I can go to see at what points in the videos they place commercials. And sometimes they'll place a commercial like 1 minute and 10 seconds into the video, and I'll have to click that box off to say, I don't want a commercial jumping up after a minute in the video. If I produce a 10-minute video and a commercial pops up at 4 minutes and then at like 8 minutes, fine. But I don't want people having to click off a commercial every minute or two, maybe every 7, 8 minutes.
Yeah, you got to be careful about that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you have absolute control over that?
Well, the thing is that they automatically put them in there, and then I can change them after the fact. But I produce so much content, I don't think to go back and look at every video and then figure out, okay, I need to delete. And I'll check off a bunch of commercial boxes that they have already checked automatically, and I'll have to take off commercials that are running. So it's annoying.
Right. Right. I should have wrote down what I was going to talk about. I hate it when this happens. Man, I'm so absorbed in this chat. These people are funny, man.
They want me to hang up on you.
No. They said I should start my own show. Me and my brothers are talking about this now.
Should.
It's going to be called George After Dark. And we're just going to talk about what's on the news. I'll do like a 3-way with my brothers. Are all 60, 61, 62, 65. We just laugh at everything we see on the news every day and talk about false flags and mandates and dictates. That gets a little gay sometimes, mandates and dictates. But I don't know. I might only last one day on YouTube doing that.
Mozart's ghost is telling everyone.
Mandates, dictates. Who are they talking to? Mandates and dictates. You gotta be kidding me. God, come up with a new word. Call it an order. I order my slaves to do as I tell them.
As much as I would like to sit here and talk about the state of our country, I refuse to do it. It's not why we're here.
I agree, and I didn't mean to.
But I would love to.
The guy said
I would love to.
to.
And I think people understand when it slips out from time
You
to
would
time.
have
I do
to
let
do
people
it
know where I
under oath.
stand on all these.
If you have to, you've done it. I've seen that.
Yes.
You would have to have a pen name, a nom de plume or whatever they call it. Anyway, somebody asked me what I think the score will be on the Tennessee game. That's the Ron Farva. And I say, I only care about winning every game all season by 1 point. I just don't care. Just give me a 1-point victory every game.
There you go.
I don't care about beating someone by 30.
Florida's winning this one, according to George, 31-30. Thanks for the call, George. We appreciate it. I'm practicing my new strategy. Have a good night.
Bye. No, you're not supposed to say bye. You're just supposed to.
Oh, that's right. I just segue. Let me try that again. Let me try that.
Thank you for the call. Next
George,
caller.
we appreciate your prediction. 31-30. Florida wins. All right.
Yeah.
Now, see, we've got to. This comment struck me because Mozart's ghost. I made a comment about making dinner. If you guys knew, and I'm not going to tell you what happened to me last night. If I told you what happened to me last night, about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, you'd all be saying, Mark, get your rest and eat. Make sure you eat. You cannot imagine what happened to me in the middle of the night last night. Whew. All right. Welcome to the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Good evening, Mark. Kevin, Dallas, Georgia. How you doing?
Hey, Kevin. How you been?
Pretty good, pretty good. Just wanted to chime in for a moment as far as it seems like the theme for this season will be the seismic season shift as far as power brokers when it comes to major colleges, as far as the blue bloods, as far as coaching, but also as far as, more importantly, the head as far as recruiters. Like, for instance, okay, Dante Williams at USC. The only way I can see Mark that he'll get the job is, hey, he has to go on and just pretty much run the table and make the doggone playoffs to get the job. But the thing is that Mark, if he don't get the head coach job, in order for him to stay at USC, he's going to have to either get a blanketed blank change as far as that title, as well as a hefty pay raise. Now, as far as the other schools, such as I feel as far as Florida State and Miami will become available at the end of the year, then the next thing will be, okay, what are we looking at, say, the possibility of James Franklin moving to SC, and then who would be the prospective coaches as far as at Florida State and University of Miami?
Well, I don't know that Florida State, first of all, they're going to have to dig deep for another big payout. They just delivered one a year and a half ago to Willie Taggart for, I've heard all sorts of reports, from $21 to $30 million. So they've got to cough up another one that is probably not in the same range, but it's probably 12 or 15 for Mike Norvell. So that's one issue. It's just the practicality of the situation. But it just doesn't seem as though Florida State's in a position where they're going to be able to attract a top-of-the-line coach.
And along those lines, as far as blind resumes, Mark,
yeah.
Okay, 2 DBs, NFL, all pros.
Yeah.
One is a head, also as far as multiple Super Bowl champion.
Yeah.
One is an ambassador at his alma mater. The other one is a head coach at a HBCU. Now, my question to you is this. Of the two, the only thing that you would give one of the other, one over the other, excuse me, would be a matter of charisma.
Yeah.
But as far as when it comes to what you do on the play and what you have between your ears, both of them will be on the same level.
It appears.
So my question is, when it comes to Deion going to SC, okay, he has the charisma, but then you look at the other hand, as far as when it comes to Ed Reed, the only thing he has over Ed Reed is just that. But when it comes to resume, the resumes stack up. So saying all that to say this, Mark, I can't understand as far as why Ed Reed is only, quote, an ambassador at the University of Miami, end of quote, a close quote.
Well, as it pertains to their candidacy for a next job, Deion Sanders, at least at this point, has coached a football season for 3 or 4 weeks. So he's got that edge on Ed Reed. If you ever listen to Bill Belichick, in particular, talk about Ed Reed, he would tell you that he's one of the smartest football players he's ever come across. I don't know if that can be said about Deion Sanders, and that's not a discredit to Deion Sanders. He's an all-time great. But I don't know, in playing the cornerback position, that there was as much thinking required as what Ed Reed did at safety.
Indeed. And one other thing, Mark, I guess maybe I missed the memo when it came to the Bucknuts, and that is, as a fan, are you more so concerned in reference to the Buckeyes or worried? Because everything I'm hearing is man overboard panic, and when it's all said and done, wouldn't it be safe to say that, okay, Ohio State is going to reach as far as the Big Ten championship and would be the odds-on favorite to win the Big Ten and be in the Final Four when it comes to a playoff this year?
Somebody told me the other day that if you check out the latest update to the Football Power Index, if you put any value in that, then Michigan is now the favorite in all of its games, including against Ohio State. Now, if you're asking me,
wow,
I have a lot less confidence in Ohio State winning the Big Ten right this second than I did 3 weeks ago. But still, if you held a gun to my head and asked me who's going to win the Big Ten, I I still have to go with Ohio State.
Because, I mean, as far as the conversation dealing with the quarterbacks, Mark, this is something you and I spoke about months ago, is that, okay, this was going to be an issue as in the numbers game. Because regardless whether it's old math or new math, 4 can't go into 3, 2 can't go into 1. So that being the case, you have your bell cow as far as your running back is concerned. As far as this year, the theme across the board when it comes to every team that's going to be in that Final 4, Final 5, all of them have new quarterbacks, first-year quarterbacks. And that being the case, you're going to have to lean on your defense. And when it comes to the Ohio State, the University of Ohio State, hey, you're going to lean on your doggone defense. And as long as Larry Johnson is there, and if you have to literally wheel them out there on the field, hey, Ohio State is going to, as far as the defense, is going to carry the load. And my question to the Bucknuts is the quarterback the issue as far as you thinking that you can't make it to the Final Four, or would you be able to put all your push all your chips to the table as far as your defense? Because I believe your defense can get you to the playoffs. Now, as far as once you get to the playoffs, as we all know, it's an entirely new season.
Have you watched Ohio State play football this year?
Yes, and I will admit, as far as the only game that I saw more than bits and pieces of was the Oregon game, which I know that might not be a good yardstick, but yeah. I still, honestly, if you go by the numbers, Mark, I feel, and I'm not an Ohio State fan, but I'm confident in your defense because I know that Larry Johnson can get it together as far as that defensive front.
Well,
when it's all said and done, because you have to break the season down in quarters, Mark.
The way that they're playing defense right now, if they get elite offensive play and they play defense like they are now, then it's going to be a shootout, exciting season. I don't know what's going to happen. The Big Ten's up for grabs. If they continue to get the defensive performance that they're getting right now, and their offense doesn't improve and play up to its potential, and let's say just is a decent offense, then they're going to go to a bowl game. They're going to. What was expected of this team is that they were going to have one of the 2 or 3 best offenses in the country, and that their defense was going to improve upon last year's performance and be good. Good meaning top 30 in the country. They're not doing that right now. Their defense is top 100 in the country, and their offense is top 30 or 40 in the country. That's why they struggled to beat Tulsa with only a touchdown lead with 6 or 7 minutes left in the game, and that's why they lost to Oregon, and that's why they took until the fourth quarter to pull away from Minnesota.
Well, Mark, across the board, I would give your Clemsons, your Oklahomas, your Alabamas, your Ohio State, your Georgia's the first 5 games. After 5 games, if there's not a market improvement after 5 games, then hey, women and children first, and then hey, the captain goes down with the ship. But I'm just blown away as far as this worry when it comes to the 21-22 season, because when it's all said and done, I would still take Ohio State over any team in the conference if it's one game. Now, and one game definitely, and even if it came down to a doggone series, I would still have to take Ohio State over the field. And I would still, as always, when it comes to Ohio State, I'm not going to even say potholes in the road. I would just say a few bumps. But I mean, really, when it comes to the few bumps, it's going to be more so as far as a half or even less than that as far as a quarter. But when it comes to some of the other schools, example, Alabama. I mean, Alabama's, as far as the biggest games that they have coming up will be A&M and Ole Miss. And I would even go as far as saying LSU, and it's just simply because it's going to be a do or die game as far as LSU, because as far as there's rumblings, as far as Baton Rouge, as far as, okay, this could be a make or break as far as Ogeron is concerned. But when it comes to all those schools, Mark is going to. All of them came into the season having to lean on their defense, and anything you get on the offensive side is gravy. But more so after 5 games, don't give a report card on Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson, Oklahoma until those first 5 games, Mark.
Well, I don't entirely agree with that statement, but I don't have time to get into dissecting every bit of it. I will say that had Alabama, you as an Alabama fan, had you played the same exact performance with results against Minnesota, Oregon, and Tulsa that Ohio State has, Alabama fans would be jumping off bridges as well. We'd have the same response, if not worse.
Well, Mark, they're doing the same thing in reference to Florida. So, I mean, they're calling, as far as, Toa was, the best thing since sliced bread until this past weekend. The same with Christian Harris.
Yep.
Now they're freelancers as far as middle linebackers are concerned.
All right, Kevin, I'm with you. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Take care. Look forward to talking with you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for the call. All right. Who's up here at the Voice of College Football? Hello?
Hello?
Hello. Who's on the line?
It's Ammonia Wilder.
Who is this?
Ammonia Wilder.
All righty. Well, thanks for joining the show. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to let you know, man, since I've been watching your show, I ain't seen one commercial yet, to be honest with you.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear.
But I'm a subscriber on YouTube.
Well, that's because you've got a premium
YouTube
account, correct? Is that why?
Exactly.
Yeah, I did the same thing a few months ago. I was like, okay, I watch way too much YouTube. I'm going crazy. My time's too valuable, and yeah, I paid the $12 a month or whatever it is. Yeah.
Well, I actually tried the month version, and then I didn't have any commercials after that, so I was like, yeah, kind of worth it, because I'm in the same boat as you was. I watch YouTube too often, apparently. Hell, I don't even turn on my TV no more. But the point I wanted to make, Mark, was, these Florida fans, they just love that. They love that good loss they got, man, and they love those moral victories. And I just wanted you to touch on that subject, just so people out there can hear it.
Well, if I'm interpreting what you're asking me, this would be my take on it. If you are a strong football program, to whatever degree, and certainly Florida should rank in this category, that there should be no thing like a moral victory. That should not exist, regardless of whether you're playing the Dallas Cowboys or the New England Patriots. Regardless of who you're playing, every game should be, the goal should be to win. Okay.
Right.
At the same time, there needs to be an understanding of your opponent and how good they are and how you're evaluating your team. So I think that both things can happen here, where you determine, we are Florida, we're a top-level college football power, we're not into moral victories, but we did play the team that's the most recent national champion, has won a zillion of them, is the gold standard in the sport, was supposed to beat us by 15 points, and we took them to the wire, and we feel good about the progress of our team.
Right. Well, honestly, I understand where you're coming from when you say that, as a college football fan, and especially as a Georgia fan. But as a Georgia fan, when Georgia loses to Alabama, I don't care if it's by 4 points or 40 points. It really doesn't matter. Honestly, I'm just pissed off. They lost. And we can go over
two of those games over the couple of years to where Georgia should have won. I've heard it a million times. I've heard it. I've heard 1980. I've heard everything. But I can tell you this: when Georgia loses to Alabama, or hell, loses any game for that matter, I'm pissed. If they lose by 1 point to Vandy or 4 points to Alabama, and I think I speak for the entire fan base. I don't like doing that, but I think on this particular subject, I can speak for everybody when I say there ain't no damn moral victories in that. I'm sorry, because 5 years from now, if you look back on the 2021 season, beside that game and beside that score, it's going to either be a W or it's going to be a L. And this past Saturday, Florida they toted that L, son, and they toted it hard in their own yard.
Sure. Let me ask you this, though. How long have you been a Georgia fan?
Well, I'm 28 years old, so, I'm not 41 years old. Okay. I'm 28 years old, and I was about 8th, 9th grade, and I saw Matthew Stafford play on TV.
Okay. All right.
And,
okay. I was just asking, how long you been a Georgia fan? I get it. So for about 13 years, something like that. So,
yeah.
So basically, during that time, Georgia's been a top level program. They certainly weren't all the time prior to that during the Jim Donnan days. And I could name a number of other guys through that time, Ray Goff, et cetera.
They were kind of
they had their 7 and 5 seasons and so forth. So the point.
Oh, trust me.
Pardon me?
No, I said, oh, trust me, I know.
So, I agree with what you're saying, that you're sick of hearing from Florida fans that are bragging about staying close to Alabama. But when it comes down to it, all that wins, the only thing that we count are wins and losses. But you're also evaluating your team's play. So I would think that imagine if you were a Vanderbilt fan.
I see what you're getting at. No, I see what you're getting at.
Well,
and that applies to everyone except Florida. Florida, well, and then kind of the same boat. You could go ahead and shove Auburn in there if you really want to. But take those two teams, and you can just there's just something about them. You can watch them lose every Saturday of in the fall, and it just brings joy to you. And you don't have to be a Georgia fan for that. It's just, man, I'm telling you, there's just something about watching Florida and Auburn lose. It tickles me inside, man. I'm sorry.
Well, you do have to be a Georgia fan to appreciate Auburn and Florida losing.
Well, I mean, you could probably be an Alabama fan, but hell, I mean, I could watch Alabama lose and be happy. But Alabama fans take it personal. So I don't want to call them out because they're just going to think it's because, they've won 6 national championships and in 5 years. So, I mean, I really don't want to go down that road with Alabama.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate the call. I totally get what you're saying, that we just count the wins and the losses, and that's all that matters. The point I'm making is that there is a that when it's this early in the season and you're Florida and you're going to have to play Georgia, and that most likely is going to determine the SEC Eastern Division, and then if things work out well, you're going to have to see Alabama again, that you can take some hope into knowing at least on one given Saturday. Of course, the game was played at home, and it might be the closest Florida could play to Alabama. We don't know, but they showed that they could play with them for 60 minutes. So,
well, Mark, I appreciate you answering my call.
Well, thank you.
Hope you have good stuff. And I can say, when this whole conversation, I did not one time mention that Georgia defense. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
Well, I've mentioned them many times because to me, it's the best defense in the country. So I'll do it for you. You have a good night.
Exactly. Go Dogs.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah, that Georgia, I saw every play of the Clemson game. I saw a few plays of the UAB game. Of course, I've got better games to watch than that. And then I saw a good half of play against South Carolina, and that Georgia defense is devastating. All right, everyone, I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the comments and the calls and everything else. I will be back at approximately 11:30 tonight, although I was not anticipating being here until 9:30. So that 11:30 is in some jeopardy. So sometime late tonight, look out for the notification. We'll be back on to take your calls to talk week 4. So I'm going to take that Ohio State quarterback title and we're going to do away with that. I want to talk about week 4 of college football, but ultimately we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about concerning college football. See you soon.